Hey guys, Buckeye Bar guys. We wanted to thank you guys for tuning in to us here on Buckeye Bar Talk. Great show we got coming up today. We're really looking forward to you guys listening and watching it. But just wanted to remind everybody, just remember to subscribe to the channel, hit the all notifications bell, that way anytime a new show comes up, you guys will be alerted to it. And don't forget to like the video and comment on the video. All interactions with us helps us continue to grow, and we appreciate your support. Now to the show.
Welcome back, everybody, to Buckeye Bar Guys here on Buckeye Bar Talk. I'm Mike.
And I'm John.
Tonight, it is Tuesday, November 2nd, 2021. And we're here for a big show tonight. We're going to talk about the victory over Penn State. And then we got playoff rankings tonight. So we'll do Penn State first, and then we will talk about the playoffs. Excuse me. All right. So Penn State this past weekend. A lot to talk about. I was, they ended up winning. It was obviously we said we both had blowout predictions for the game. But I do think I remember me saying if somehow it's a game in the fourth quarter, I wouldn't be surprised. So I'm not surprised. It was one of those Ohio State, Penn State slugfest. I'm not too angry about anything. One thing that happened, there's one thing I'm kind of concerned about, which we'll get into. It's on the offense. I thought the defense was fine for the most part. They gave up some yards. They ended up giving up some touchdowns, but I thought for the most part they played pretty good. They played better against Penn State than they did against Oregon, and that was probably the next best challenge that they've had since Oregon. So right now I'm pretty okay where the defense is. I think they still need to keep improving, but at least they have a different benchmark now to compare it to. As this was kind of a real challenge. Clifford. There was other parts of the game where, he got hit hard and he looked like he was getting hit hard. But he's a gamer. He played through it. And, just what's your thoughts, John? I think the defense, we'll start with the defense first. I think they did all right. I'm not, I don't consider it being a close game because of anything that they did.
Run defense was exceptional. So that's one thing. Outside corners, I thought they played very well. Cam Brown and Denzel Burke both had excellent games. I thought Seven Banks had a really nice game too. I know Dotson, for him to actually get started, get going at all, he had to move off of Denzel Burke. So I don't know how much of that went against, Seven Banks. I thought a lot of it was more so in the middle slot, pairing up against linebackers, safeties, maybe even a cover cornerback or
they did run in the second half. They ran a lot more slants and crossing routes with him, and I think that they were definitely trying to challenge him to the middle of the field a little bit more than the first half. He might have caught one ball in the first half. I don't know.
I don't think he didn't catch anything in the first half. So yeah, they played great. Linebackers still, need some work, but defensive line played really well. They were disrupting Clifford for a good part of the game. There were times, of course, they couldn't get to him. Of course, we're not going to focus too much on bad calls, but there should have been at least 3 more sacks in that game that weren't called. Because, I have no doubt Steel Chambers and Lathan Ransom both get to Clifford on their holds. And I'm pretty sure Eichenberg, how bad his hold was, I'm pretty sure he could have got there too. So definitely more pressure though. There was pressure from, I believe it was Tyreek Smith Tyreek Smith and Zach Harrison caused a fumble. Tyreek Smith also caused an interception to Cam Brown. So defensive line played very well. Safeties and linebackers, you still come away with this one thinking that they need a little bit of work, that they still, they're inexperienced. They're not deep. They're still all these times that they get to see different things. It's only beneficial for them. I didn't leave this game thinking the defense, they gave up 360 passing yards to Clifford, which I didn't think was going to happen. I was pretty loud about how little I thought of Clifford as a, star quarterback. So he did put up some numbers. It never really hurt Ohio State. But a lot of it was also to the middle of the field or if someone didn't get there and things opened up in that zone, someone was able to work to the weak spot of the zone. And these things happen, and you see it more time you're going to play. You're going to get used to it. You're going to get that experience, but also the defensive line. I don't think many people know the defensive line has the most sacks now out of any Power 5 football team. Yeah. So they've come a long way from where our concerns were about them in the beginning of the year. Now, do they still have to, do it against a better offensive line? Absolutely. But they're getting confidence and they're showing that they can do this.
Yeah. I will say with them running to the weak points of the zones and stuff, for the most part, though, after they caught the ball, usually there was a tackler there. There wasn't a lot of missed tackles. So that's a good thing. That's always a positive thing on zones. A lot of times with zones, you're going to give up yards. And, especially if you're not getting pressure.
Right.
And there was plenty of times that they were getting pressure. I mean, Clifford actually made some nice throws with pressure in his face at different spots, especially in the second half. So I'll give him kudos to that because, I mean, he did have some pressure and he was able to complete some passes. So, like I said, yeah, the defense I thought was fine. The officiating left a lot to be desired. I know you said that we didn't want to spend a lot of time on it. I'm not going to spend a whole bunch of time. I'm upset about the targeting. I thought that was a BS targeting and the holds were ridiculous. And then it was like, they were kind of stuff that they were missing. Then it's like, so then they're calling it on Ohio State on the opposite side. I was very disappointed. I thought the two back judges, or not back judges, the ref and the other referee that was back behind the line of scrimmage, they were awful. Like, I'm not gonna even mix that up. I mean, the holding calls that they missed were just awful. And
I mean, they were so blatant. It was guys were beat and their arms were around the shoulder pads.
Yeah.
I mean, I've never seen so many of those get missed in one game.
Yeah. And that has a lot to do with it. Now, I mean, we'll get to the offensive side of this ball. They didn't help themselves out any neither. I mean, it was a very uncharacteristic game for the offense. But, things I was definitely impressed with. I was definitely impressed with the defensive line. They are definitely setting themselves up as, I mean, Georgia has the best defensive line in the country. I don't think there's much of a disagreement on that right now.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Georgia is a tier above everybody at that spot. But, granted, I haven't seen everybody, but I've seen a lot of the so-called top teams. And I would have to say Ohio State's in that second tier right now. I mean, and that's probably 2 through 5. I mean, I don't know where they fall in that list, but I'd say they're top 5 defensive line right now.
Yeah.
And obviously that's where we expect them to be. But, the first few games of the year, it was like they're getting no pressure. Now, there's spots of the game where they're not getting maybe as much pressure as they should. But I mean, that happens. As long as it's for the majority of the game, you are getting pressure on a quarterback, at least making some sort of disruptions, then, which they did. And you got to just judge that's a win for them. And, they looked pretty good. So I was very happy with the defensive line. Just like you, I was happy with the outside, corners. When it comes to the middle of the field, the safeties definitely need to keep getting experience. The linebackers I thought did okay. Taraja, Steele getting kicked out of the game. Definitely pointed that out that Taraja, he's good. I think he's pretty good at coming up and playing the run.
He gets lost in pass coverage.
And that's not a good thing, especially since you're playing zone. You're just playing a zone, and so just stay in your area and just try to break up a pass. And if you don't break up a pass, tackle the guy.
Right. I know he gets himself just when he's in pass coverage, he just gets himself out of the play. He constantly does it. Hopefully he keeps learning, keeps getting better. We're not deep at that position. So we need all these guys to play. But yeah. I feel like, and I know Steele's out for the first half against Nebraska. I think the kid has just shown with his instincts and what he can do on the field. I think he deserves to be snap one starter. I think he can come
Yeah, I
up.
agree.
He can come up and stop the run. He seems like he's one of the better ones in pass coverage. So there's nothing about him that I don't think he matches the personnel he's going to go against. I think he should be he should be on the field as the starting linebacker. And then
Yeah, I agree.
the other one, I don't know. I mean, who would you say would be your other starter? Cody Simon, even though he's, looked to struggle at times.
I think it's the most upsides with Simon. That's who I would go with. And then kind of Mitchell and Eichenberg, the next group down. Eichenberg more in other situations where, if it's obvious rundowns and, you're playing a running style football team, I have no problem with Eichenberg being in there earlier downs.
Hey, you can say what you want about Tommy, from Oregon and from Tulsa. He's been a lot better since that Tulsa game.
So, I mean, I'm fine with him on the field now. I mean, this style of defense fits him perfectly. So, he's made more plays than he's had mistakes since, the Tulsa game. I want to see them get Pele a little bit more playing time. Now, I don't know how much he really played. I'm trying to, sometimes those get mixed in. He might have had a lot of playing time last week with Steele getting kicked out in the second half. But, he made, I think, a play or two. I'm not saying, put him in as the starter, but just, add some extra depth in there that, it's not a bad thing. I'm not saying that be rotating every single play, but, rotate here and there just to give some extra depth onto the field, keep some of the guys fresh as the games go on.
I think he's an excellent run stopping linebacker. I'm not sure how he is in pass coverage, but instinctively, I feel like he's kind of right behind Steel Chambers. Like, he seems to be more so in the right position than some of the other guys are. So I agree with you. I think that you got to get him on the field more often.
Yeah. And then, like we said, right now, the outside corners, I mean, they've been phenomenal this year when they are playing the outside of the field. I mean, I know there were some arguments on Buckeye Twitter about I think everybody's pretty much feeling that Denzel Burke's the best on the team, but there's arguments who's second best between Brown and Seven, and it's like, man, there's on both of them. There are stretches in the games that you don't realize any of the corners are playing because nobody's even challenging them. I'm like, Burke's name barely gets called. I haven't thought Seven's played in the last 2 weeks because I don't remember like one ball really going to him. Mm-hmm. I mean, I know that's not true, but. And same with Cam Brown is he had a big pick. It's just like, and that's just to me, that's always just saying that, that they're playing out of their mind right now and they're playing tough coverage because, and they are playing coverage because every time they have been challenged, they basically, maybe with the exception of like one or two times, they've been literally plastered to the guy that is trying to get the ball. So
and you need them all down the stretch, so you need them all playing well.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm definitely feeling pretty good where we're at there. The safeties, I think that they just need to just keep playing, man. That again, just like Eichenberg and a couple of the linebackers, they are playing better too since they went to the zone defenses and they've played more, cover 2 at times, cover 3 at times, keeping extra guys back there. They've played quarters. I mean, they're switching up a lot of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And, we haven't had a lot of cover 1 where the guy's just by himself back there, or cover 3 where he's the corners are pretty much busy on the receivers and that's it, and he's the lone gun back there. So I think that they've done pretty well keeping extra guys back when they need to keep extra guys back. And that's kind of helped with the, not giving up a lot of big plays.
Yeah. I don't remember seeing Court Williams on the field at all. But anyway, so, I mean, Ronnie Hickman, of course, safeties, he's your best safety.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's any arguing that. I feel like Ransom gives you the most upside, but Bryson Shaw's outplayed him.
Yeah.
And that's another thing. And I know people they give Bryson Shaw such a hard time for those first couple games, but down the stretch, he's been the better option.
Yeah. And I know he's kind of more of a nickelback, but Marcus Williamson, who's kind of
Looking
like
good.
between, nickelback and kind of like a safety, there's that extra guy out there. He's played very good. He had a good game. He's had some good games. So like, I definitely like what I'm seeing with all these guys.
Yeah, I agree. So I know like you don't like giving up 300 something passing yards, but I never felt like Penn State had a chance to really win that game. And maybe when you're down 7-0 or whatever, that's not something that you like, but yeah, I don't know. I wasn't too concerned about it.
Yeah. Just, discussing that, I agree with you that I wasn't too concerned at 7. I mean, I wasn't concerned at all at 7-0. I was a little bummed out when they went up 17-7, and I thought that when they went up 17-7, I thought that they would pull away from that game. So I'm more upset that they allowed that game to get back to tied.
Yeah.
So,
Sorry about that. The laptop, the battery got unplugged, so it was about to die on me. So I had to get up and plug that in real quick. But no,
not moving out of the wall.
Yeah, right. I agree. I didn't think like 7-0. I mean, that was the worst the game really got for Ohio State. So you really weren't that concerned when that happened. So you're never concerned. So even though you were giving up a ton of yards, it kind of went to one of those bend, don't break type deals. And, you never like to see giving up 360 passing yards, but when you win by 9, didn't really hurt you.
Yeah, and we'll transition now into offense. Actually, what concerned me the most in the game, it was when we went up 17-7. Yeah, we gave it back. We went to tied, but then we ended up taking the lead again. The only thing that was kind of sticking to me that there was a possibility we could lose the game was just the offense was not getting touchdowns, and I'm just like, I don't like that when they're in position to get touchdowns. And I'm okay. I'm not one of those guys that gets upset if you kick 1 or 2, maybe even 3 field goals in a game. Like it happens. And, you got to be able to do that part of the game too. But they had way too many red zone attempts to not get more touchdowns in that game. And that always kind of leaves just that like that feeling in the back of your head that's like, man, if Penn State could get lucky, and coverage, somebody could fall down. Sean Springs falls down, and when you're not, scoring points when you should be scoring points, there's a big bust then, and so stuff like that happens in football games. That does concern me. That this was the next best defense that they've really played since Oregon. Indiana's a good defense too, and they pretty much wiped the floor with them, but. It kind of had that feel to me of the Oregon game all over again. It was like, they get into positions, and then it was like, and they got into more positions in this game because they actually got into red zone opportunities. In the Oregon, it was like every time they crossed midfield, they would sputter out. Besides the touchdowns that they got, I don't know. That kind of worries me. Just add that we're coming up that we're going to be playing some better defenses now coming down the stretch, and if you want to go where you want to go, you're going to be playing some really good defenses. So, like, maybe we need to get a little bit more creative when we get into the red zone.
Well, I think a lot of it, Henderson did miss some plays. He missed some holes. Offensive line, they truly, when it came to run blocking, they missed a lot of plays. They were off assignment a lot. I'm not sure, what Penn State really did to confuse them that much. I don't know if they just overloaded the line or what, but the guys just constantly like forgot, their lane assignments, and they were just going to one guy trying to get to the next level, leaving someone hanging. And it was bad for most of the night. They didn't really get it fixed. No. So, passing, I think passing was all right though. They kept CJ Stroud upright. Stroud, of course, and I'm not going to harp on him too much. Good, the Olave passes was a really bad miscommunication with the two. Because that's the thing, like people, you can complain about Ryan Day being too aggressive going for it on 4th. The play was drawn up perfectly.
Yeah.
Olave is wide open. It was a miscommunication that.
Yeah, he had like the perfect play there that he knew what he wanted to go with. Like he knew he was going for it if they didn't get it because they didn't substitute it into have anything. They went right to that play. it would have been wide open. It was a touchdown, and it's just you could argue that I personally think that the refs letting CJ Stroud run the length of the field
that was a bull crap, man.
BS fumble that everybody knew wasn't a fumble. I mean, Henderson doesn't even catch it. It bounces literally off of him and then literally physically hits the ground. Like, you can't even say that he kind of got it.
Well, that's where I was confused. And like, that's what I said when it happened live. I'm like, did that actually hit off of somebody's foot and bounce right back up? And that's considered interception. I was like, the fact that they thought that was a fumble. I mean, there was no chance. He didn't have anything close to possession. It bounced off his chest onto the ground. So yeah, that was absolutely ridiculous that they had CJ Stroud run 80 yards after that guy. And then, and they're like, oh, I think Herbstreit's like, oh, he's out of breath. Well, no crap, he's out of breath. He just ran 80 yards and he has to go right back up and line up. I thought there were some really good play calls though. If, Henderson, the one that he broke and ran down to like the 2 or 3 yard line, that was, they kind of split out Penn State and they ran up the middle there. And then the pass to Olave, the touchdown pass, was more so like, because Penn State was selling out on the run. I believe it was under center, if I remember correctly. Like, I think it was a play action that
definitely a play action,
because Thayer came back and Thayer pulled and got the edge blitzer or edge rusher. And so, yeah, I mean, it's like, I think there were some good play calls in there. So I don't know. I'm kind of with you that, you gotta know how to score in the red zone, but they kind of shot themselves in the foot too. You had a lot of false starts, which I think CJ might have been doing something different with his cadence. I don't know if he was trying to mess with Penn State or not, but you could see the one time Thayer was visibly upset that they didn't snap the ball. I think he turned around and said, come on, we need to go, or something like that. Henderson, of course, he had one right in the goal line that he did a false start. Whippler, I don't know, he had some issues with snap infractions. So it wasn't a good game for the offensive line and pre-snap penalties, but learn from it. You won by 9, you move on. Stroud didn't play a great game, but he still threw for 300 yards and looked good. I mean, that was a growing game. He didn't throw any interceptions. He only had 1 touchdown. And even though it wasn't his best performance, he stayed upright. He made a lot of good throws. Yeah, he undershot Olave on what would have been a touchdown, but he still stepped in and he made plays when he needed to.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a good game to learn from. And that's always been like the one thing about Penn State over the last several years. They're always the good game that you get the hard win and then they'll like kind of prove that you can win a tough game. I mean, if you think back to 2014, that was the first time that they were challenged since the loss to Virginia Tech. And, they were up big in the first half and they let, Penn State come right back on them. And in the second half, and even though they weren't up like huge in this game, I mean, they were up 17-7 and after that big Jerron Cage run, it's like, all right, they're going to put this game away now. That was the momentum killer.
What sweet hands that dude has, man. That ball bounced right up to him.
Yeah, no, that was still just a beautiful touchdown. And, just was great to see just how exciting, in a lot of games, that would be the deciding factor. If that happened, that would be the end all be all. But, Penn State, whether it's Paterno, whether it's O'Brien, whether it's Franklin, they never quit, especially when they play Ohio State. They just, they might get behind some, but for the most part, with some rare exceptions, they played to the end. Mm-hmm. And, that's been the one team that we've had more hard times blowing them out than anybody, it seems like. And so, kudos to them. Glad to get the W and be able to move on. It was a tough game the whole day. So, when the field goal was missed, you just blow out a sigh of relief at the end of that game because it's like, all right, we won. And so and Nebraska.
Right. Move on to Nebraska. And, Trevion Henderson, we didn't talk too much about him. He had a beautiful run. But he showed us something, I think, on Saturday night too. It didn't come easy for him. And he didn't give up. He kept fighting. And you know what? eventually with that guy, he keeps fighting. He's going to get his. So
exactly. So I was pretty pleased with him. I was pretty pleased with Stroud. Like I said, in the Oregon game, they get it to within the 7, and they just can never get over that last hump, offensively or defensively, to tie the game and eventually go win the game. At least this one, Penn State's on their backs the whole game. They're able to keep them back there, and they win the game. And so that's like the most important thing. It's like you need one of those games. You do need one of those games to kind of prove to yourself that, hey, we can do it. If it gets tough out here, we can hold somebody off.
Yeah, I mean, they needed a game that was gritty that they fought to win. So it was definitely a good time for it to happen.
Yeah. Anything else you want to throw out on offense before we get to the playoff stuff?
No, I mean, it wasn't a great game, but there was some that, Jackson Smith and Jigba looked really good in that game. So,
yeah, I mean, Garrett Wilson had a pretty good game. Olave did good. I mean, Ruckert had the fumble, but he had a bunch of catches afterwards.
Yeah.
Again, I don't think you're going to see much ever from the receiving core that just like, man, they had a bad game today. I mean, it's just like, as long as Stroud can get it to them, they're going to have a better game than a bad game.
Olave was pretty quiet, but his touchdown play
was huge.
That was a big one. And that was beautiful.
And he was wide open on the one that they missed, and that would have been a huge touchdown too. And
that would have been a backbreaker.
So, and
we can talk about that too. They had 4 field goals. They had 5 trips to the red zone, got 4 field goals out of, or 6 trips, but they got 1 touchdown. So, you had 4 more points 4 times. So that's another 16 points. So they could have got in there, close to actually 50 points in this game.
Yeah.
They could have scored over 50 points. So there was definitely some stuff to work on. And, that's going to be the tough thing when you face these top tier teams. Georgia, you might be able to get completions on Georgia, but you got to be able to score on them if you get them at the end of the day when the field shrinks.
Yeah.
And even, same thing about, Michigan State, Michigan, whoever you get in the Big Ten title game. I don't think they're going to really struggle against any of those 3 teams, but when the field shrinks, you got to be able, you can't trade 7 for 3.
Yeah. I mean, I would say probably the one thing that was, and I'd have to watch maybe an all 22 to really get a feel for it. But it just seems like when they were getting down in the red zone, they were either, the running game was hard all night with a few exceptions.
Mm-hmm.
And, they were singling on Trey the whole time. And it didn't seem like the offensive line was getting off the ball at all. But when they were throwing the ball, it just seems like they never really tried the middle of the field. They were always trying to throw a fade or throw something to the outside. And there was a couple times where I saw Olave was bracketed and like they're trying to throw it out. And I'm just like, there has to be somebody with all the attention they're paying towards Trey. And then it seems like they're keeping their safeties towards the outside more to cover against the outside throws. There has to be something in the middle open. And it's just, it was like they were never attempting it.
Yeah, I agree. So, there's definitely a ton to work on, but you leave the game feeling good. And I don't think there's any other way. I don't feel bad about beating Penn State by 9 points. I don't feel like there's some huge lingering concerns as like, oh man, how are we going to, beat these other teams on our schedule? I feel good after that game.
Yeah.
They manned up and they won a hard game.
Exactly. All right. Playoffs. So, first rankings came out tonight. Was pretty happy where everything's sitting right now.
Yeah.
So I'll read off the top 8 because that's what I remember off the top of my head. So Georgia's 1, obviously. I don't think that was a surprise at all. Big surprise having Alabama 2. I was not expecting that one at all. Now, I did think Alabama was going to be in the top 4, but I thought they were going to be 3 or 4.
Yeah, 2's weird. They lost to an unranked team. And that's, I don't agree with it. I think it's odd that they're number 2. But they said they felt like they had the hardest schedule out of everyone else. So,
yeah.
And that wasn't comparable who had a harder schedule than Alabama. I don't know. I don't agree with it, but it is what it is.
Yeah. Michigan State's 3. So, I mean, obviously for the Buckeyes, future schedule, that's looking pretty good. I'd like to see next 2 weeks, Michigan State hold on, win out.
Handle business.
So we can get to them with no losses. The next 3 teams is where I was really was wanting to see where to pay attention at, because where these teams were all slotted, to me, was going to be a lot of what we needed to do going forward. So Oregon's 4, they beat us. The commissioner said that the committee head said that, they have the signature win, which Ohio State doesn't right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand. Ohio State was 5th, and so they were ahead of Cincinnati at 6. I was really thinking that they were going to put Cincinnati in the top 4. And the fact that they didn't, and that Oklahoma's right now nowhere near and we'll get to them in a minute, Michigan and Oklahoma finish out 7 and 8. To me, that's so they put Ohio State at 5th. Michigan State and Michigan are both in spots that are going to give Ohio State possibly 2 signature wins.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like Cincinnati, I don't know if they have enough on the schedule without some major losses in front of them that they can even get back into it.
I mean, unless they're just saying that, we got to see Cincinnati go undefeated first before we give them that type of benefit of the doubt. But I don't see where, if they think that's where they are compared to what's in front of them, I don't know how they're going to look better, because these teams all have harder games than Cincinnati coming up. I mean, Ohio State beats Michigan State by 7. Isn't that, comparable to beating Houston by 20? You know what I'm saying? And even though, those teams might be good, South Florida, they're not good. That's who's on Cincinnati's schedule. Like us beating even Nebraska by 7. It looks a lot better than Cincinnati beating those guys by 3-4 scores. Definitely us beating Michigan State, but Purdue's looked good this year. So I know they got SMU still on their schedule, but that's it.
Yeah.
Or maybe Houston too, but that's not, I just think a 1-point win over Michigan is bet. I don't even know what you can compare that to SMU. Probably 4 scores.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's just, I don't know without chaos happening in front of them. But then again, they go undefeated. They win their conference title. Maybe that's what the committee needs to see.
Maybe, but Oklahoma still has Baylor and Oklahoma State left. And, possibly in a rematch against one of them for the championship game. So
that's where my focus is. If Ohio State handles their business and they win, I believe, they got to be in with Michigan State's positioning, Michigan's positioning. And you and I talked about earlier, they kind of set it up that as long as the Big Ten East team they're the champion of the Big Ten and they have 1 loss, they should be in the playoff. And I think that's just how these 3 teams are positioned, works out for that. I'm a little scared with the SEC matchup though. Those 2 getting each one of those teams in. Oregon, they're already in front of Ohio State. So presumably if Ohio State beats Michigan State, that would be their signature win though. So they might jump Oregon in that situation. So it's really, how much does the committee like an undefeated OU? I don't think an undefeated Wake Forest really pushes the needle enough for them.
No,
I don't think so. And Wake Forest still has, they still have UNC, they still have Clemson. I mean, these aren't gimmies. They have a championship game. I don't know if anyone really believes Wake Forest is, for real. I know they have a ton of kids that return. And so, maybe they do finish undefeated. Cincinnati though, but with all that being said, I don't see either one of those teams finishing behind Cincinnati if all 3 end up undefeated between OU, Wake Forest, and Cincy. So I don't know. It's just, I don't feel good for the Bearcats right now. If I was, the Bearcats fans, I would definitely be hoping for chaos to just rain down upon the college football if I wanted to make the playoffs. I feel pretty confident for Ohio State though, but like I said, OU finishing undefeated, I think that's really, what we got to look at here.
Well, it's like, just for Cincinnati's sake, and I don't know who they possibly would match up with in their conference championship game, but, let's say that Alabama beats Georgia by 3. It's a great game. It's a slugfest, and it's a 3-point game. Now, I will argue anybody blue in the face that a loser in a conference championship game, we have never seen that happen to the playoff. I don't think they should go to the playoff. But
technically, Notre Dame made the playoffs last year.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's true. I forgot that they were technically the ACC last year. So once. It's happened once
in the COVID year. In the COVID
year when Notre Dame's not technically in a conference, but they were for that year. But with these two now being 1 and 2, you definitely have to assume if Alabama wins and it's a close game, then they're probably both getting in. Mm-hmm. Now, if Georgia beats Alabama ain't getting in with 2 losses. That's going to kick them out. Right. I don't care where. And if Alabama blows Georgia out, then I would think that Georgia's probably going to get thrown out of there.
I mean,
that was my opinion on it. I don't see a runner-up making the playoff if there's quality teams left.
Right. In the mix. I can agree with that, especially if it's a blowout. I mean, presumably, you're talking about anywhere from a 14 to 20 point win when you say blowout, and even more than that. And that's kind of what Georgia's known for. That's what people want them in, is for their defense. So if Alabama beats them up.
Yeah. So if a good offense beats up their defense and they can't score, or score enough, then I would think that they are out, because I think then they'll be like, well, they're going to play other good offenses in the playoff. And, Ohio State could do the exact same thing to them as that, because Ohio State has a good offense. But let's just assume both those teams are in. It's a 3-point win. Bama beats them. So, and let's say Ohio State wins out, they beat Michigan State at undefeated, and they beat Michigan at 1 loss, and Oregon wins out and Oklahoma wins out. In that situation, there's no way Cincinnati's getting in, even if they win
out. No chance.
And probably Oklahoma's the one out at that point, because it's probably going to be Oregon and Ohio State, because they're going to say Oregon because they're going to say the Big 12 doesn't match up against the Big 10. And Ohio State won the Big 10, and Oregon beat Ohio State. So that's how they're going to play it. And so that will be your 4 playoff teams. And so I'm really in good mood right now, where we're positioned, as long as Michigan State and Michigan hold up kind of their ends of the bargains right now. And they need to, because they need wins too, because whoever wins this conference, if it comes from the East and they have 1 loss or no losses, they're definitely in. So it's like, every one of them, Michigan State needs to keep their heads on. Michigan needs to keep their heads on, and the Buckeyes need to keep on their heads, because any one of them are right now in pure position to make the playoffs.
You know what I like, though, and I know it's a little bit low, and I'm very shocked that Penn State, I mean, I realize they lost to Illinois. I'm very shocked they are not a top 25 team in the college football playoff.
I'm shocked that they got kicked out and Wisconsin's in. Like, I don't know
where they beat Wisconsin.
Like, I didn't see that coming. It's like, we have to, just in case Wisconsin's the one that represents the West, we got to make sure there's a good school on there. The Big Ten.
I mean, doesn't it kind of feel like that with 20, 21, and 22 all being the top 3 teams in the Big Ten West?
At least we could say they have whoever wins the Big Ten East has another top 25 win.
Yeah. Yeah. I kind of thought that was good for the Big Ten, but a little odd.
Suspicious to me. For everybody that says that the Big Ten kind of gets crapped on and stuff like that, I'm like, that was a little suspicious. But like, Wisconsin in there just in case that they're the ones that win it, huh?
Right. Which, I mean, they control their own destiny, so they could do it. But I mean, you got to imagine if one of those 3 teams win out, and they're the one that plays Ohio State. Now, they're 20, 21, 22. I mean, how many more weeks? We're talking, 4 more games that they would have? So they could easily be 15 or above at that point in the committee's eyes. And that's a good win. That's a good win in a conference title game. So,
exactly.
So don't think too much that, the committee craps too much on the Big Ten, because it is very helpful that those 3 teams were top 25 teams.
Yeah. Well, between those 3 teams at the back end, but where they position the three Eastern teams. I mean, Michigan just lost. I mean, it was a good game, but they just lost to Michigan State.
And they stayed ahead of Oklahoma
on that. So, I mean, that's saying a lot to what they feel of the Big 12 right now. And that's why I'm thinking if Oklahoma wins out, Ohio State, or any of the three Big Tens, you know, whoever it represents, but for our sake, we're going to say Ohio State, and Oregon wins out, I think it's Ohio State. I think it's the Big Ten champion. It's Oregon in the playoffs if those other two SEC teams are sitting there. And at that point, Cincinnati's definitely out. And Oklahoma, they would have an argument, but, you know, basically the committee's already said that
they got to look good.
They got to look good doing it because, you know, Ohio State has two better games setting up than what they got setting up.
Now, what I want to know about Oklahoma, and of course, you know, they got the better talent in the game. Can they look good against Dave Aranda's defense? Because they got that coming up. And I mean, Oklahoma State's got a good defense too. So not the best teams to, I mean, definitely quality wins. That definitely helps their resume, but not the best teams to try to look impressive against because they're 11-12 right now. So those will be big wins for Oklahoma if they beat both those teams.
Yeah. So, unless you have anything else to throw on there, I think we'll probably call it a night on that one. But definitely interesting first playoffs, and I like where it happened because I was nervous about what they were going to do with Oregon and Cincinnati. You know, like I was a little nervous they both would be in front of Ohio State, but I like that only one of them was. It's a team that beat Ohio State. They're saying Cincinnati right now is worse than Ohio State. And they put two of our remaining games are within, you know, 1-3 and 1-7. So like they are saying that if those hold, that those are going to be top 10 wins for any of them. Like,
and I was worried Oklahoma was going to be in front of Ohio State as an undefeated team. So I mean, I thought it was a realistic possibility. Ohio State's sitting at 7 right now.
I thought somewhere between 6 to 8. I was hopeful for 6, nervous about 8, was really hoping 5, and I was glad that we got to 5. Mm-hmm. And Oklahoma's way behind us. Cincinnati's behind us. We have 2 Big Ten teams that we still have to play that are also top 10 teams. One of them's a top 5 team. So, and if they hold, if they can win the next 2 weeks, and I mean, we're playing a top 5, you know, top 3 Michigan State, you know, that's a huge win if we beat them.
Well, and by the time November 27th rolls around, if Michigan doesn't lose anymore, they're a top 5 team.
Yeah.
You got to assume, I mean, maybe they're not. You would just think that Michigan State at that point, you know, they might fall below Michigan.
Yeah. Yeah. So, all right. I think that's a good place to finish up, but definitely happy with that and happy with the W on Saturday.
Yep.
We'll do our Nebraska show here in a few days, and so we'll call it a night.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for stopping in tonight to the Buckeye Bar. I'm John.
And I'm Mike.
OH.
IO.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's Buckeye Bar Guys on Buckeye Bar Talk. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Hit that all notifications bell so you see when new content is added. And please remember to like and share so we can grow our audience. Don't be afraid to comment. We want to know what you're thinking, and we want to know what content to add for you guys. OH.
IO.